Hi, we are a little later because Kev, we were just talking about our producer forgot to send you the link to the podcast.
Don't worry, you guys can blame me. It's all my fault somehow.
Kev Fielder's joining us today. Jordan is in San Diego. I think for the second year in a row, I think the Titans game kind of broke a lot of people in the fan base. It was a shitty way to come back. I was in Ocean City for a music festival over the weekend. It was great. I stood in the monsoon, saw Blink 182, Cage the Elephant, OAR, The Offspring. Such a great show. And I come back to that crap.
You should have stayed at Ocean City.
I should have stayed there. No, I had to come back, and it was $1,200 for 4 nights. So I couldn't do it another night. Kev, just to kind of go where I was thinking, like, I don't want to say I'm not mad because obviously I am, but watching that game, I just became more and more stunned because to me, we're making life harder than it needs to be on the team.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily mad, as you said. I'm like the dad. I'm more disappointed, right?
Yeah.
Because it felt like, you know what, that first game against Seattle, you had 10 days to prepare. You're going on the road to a really harsh environment. Ask anyone who's played in the NFL, who's played in Seattle, they'll all tell you the same thing. And so it felt like, you know what, that's just going to be a bad game. Seattle's got a pretty good team. It just felt like that was going to be a game that they were just going to struggle in. And obviously they did. I'll be honest, I didn't watch much of that game. I was on a flight coming back from Provo, Utah, Salt Lake City. So I'm just glad I didn't have to watch too much of that game. But it felt like, you know what, you would have had another week in-house. You would have had another week to just get everything going. And it felt like that Tennessee game was the game to get right. And regardless of the circumstances, it felt like that was the game that you could win. And it starts off well. Like the first drive for Miami is promising, and they have the fumble. And I know people want to say Tyreek Hill should have dove on that. I get why he didn't. I do also partly agree. But you start with an interception, you get short field, and you're driving, and it feels like even as that drive ends and the turnover happens, you still feel like there's promising things going on. And it feels so weird to say this. I think that was their most promising drive of the entire game outside of the touchdown.
Yeah.
And if your first drive is your most promising drive and it ends in a turnover, I mean, that's the perfect indictment of what the game was like on Monday.
Yeah. And like I said, we're calling this solutions. We don't want it to be too much complaining because Dolphin fans for 3 weeks now, we've been doing a lot of complaining. But we still had to get a little bit out because that game was bad. The big thing right now, the big argument is talent versus coaching. Now, I've been saying this for weeks. I've been saying this basically all offseason. I am not trying to say the offensive line is good. It isn't. But what I am going to say is we are not 1-3 because of the offensive line, nor do I think we are putting the offensive line in the best positions to succeed. We are asking them to do a lot of complex blocks. We're asking them to do a lot of combos. We're asking them to do a lot of pooling, and it just doesn't seem like they're equipped for it. So I said this on Twitter the other day. Not that Mason Rudolph was good, but when Mason Rudolph came in for Will Levis, what did the Titans do? They simplified the blocking. They gave him easy throws, and they ran north-south. What did the Dolphins do? None of that. So that's where I have the issue with Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, it was. I think their problem in that game was, and I had tweeted this before the game when Dan Orlovsky had said that Tyler Huntley had said that the plan wasn't to change the offense too much. And I get it. You can't install a brand new playbook in a week. Yeah. Anyone who expects them to go build a new playbook in a week, you are watching the wrong sport. You need to be realistic about the expectations. But it felt like the Miami Dolphins offense is built on timing. It's built on Tua Tagovailoa having great chemistry with the wide receivers. The problem is chemistry is built in the offseason. It's built in training camp. It's built in OTAs. It's built in the preseason. It's built over years of playing. You can't go put a new guy in there and expecting the same results.
Yeah.
Tyler Huntley, I think, played fine. There were some throws that he missed. I think that they put guardrails on him a little bit too much. I think they sort of forced him to play in a role that he's just not used to. And but the biggest issue, I think, was just play calling structure. It didn't feel like there was a very coherent plan as to how to combat the fact that you had a backup quarterback, because you can't ask Tyler Huntley to be on the same page as Tyreek Hill. They've played together for a week, 2 weeks. I'm sorry, but it's like if you get a new job, you don't know your coworkers after a week. You know a little bit about them. You don't know everything about your coworkers in a week. You don't know everything about your coworkers in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think that there should have been a very simplified offense, and not simplified in the sense of you're only running screens, you're only running draws, you're only running these plays, but more so what they should have done was, and this is what I had brought up after the game. I had tweeted something out of this. When the Colts lost Anthony Richardson and they went to Joe Flacco, when the Packers lost Jordan Love and they went to Malik Willis, and Malik Willis had only been in Green Bay for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at that point, when the Vikings lost J.J. McCarthy, and Sam Darnold's not the same situation, but Sam Darnold is still the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
All of their offenses are built around who are our best players on offense, who are the guys that we need to focus on getting the ball to. And the Green Bay Packers, they got the ball to Jaden Reed a bunch of times. They found ways to get him the ball. They found ways to get Josh Jacobs the ball. You watch the Vikings play, and if you haven't watched the Vikings play, they are running a very simplified offense right now, but it works because they have Jordan Addison, they have Justin Jefferson, they have Aaron Jones, and they're getting them the ball. It felt like the Dolphins tried to do that early. And I think that first drive, Tyler Huntley connected with Jalen Waddle, and they had found ways to try and get Devon Achane into space, and that's the right idea. The problem is you can't abandon that after the first drive. And I think that once you abandon that, you can't go back to it. And I feel like they should have been those first few drives, even if it doesn't work all the time. You've got a backup quarterback in there, guys. You can't expect it to work all the time. The ball should have been going to Tyreek Hill. The ball should have been going to Jalen Waddle. The ball should have been going to Jonnu Smith, who's a good receiver. The ball should have been going to Devon Achane and Jalen Wright. And you should have tried to beat him in a track race.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like they didn't try to do that as much as they probably needed to. And when I talk about the play calling, that's my biggest issue heading into this week. And this is not as complaining, but more so as like what needs to change. What's the solution for this? The offense needs to be simplified. Yes. There can't be enough with the motions. I know Mike McDaniel likes running motions, and the Dolphins are, I think, 20 points above anyone else, percentage points above anyone else when it comes to motion in the NFL. Enough with it. It's not working right now. Take it out the playbook and go simplify this. Once Tyler Huntley gets a little bit more comfortable with the receivers, you could start gradually adding it back in. But you can't expect Tyler Huntley, you can't expect Skylar Thompson, you can't expect Tim Boyle to beat Tua Tagovailoa. And none of them are Tagovailoa. And so for me, the argument of well, they should have just invested in a better backup quarterback. Would that have fixed any of the problems? If you have, I'm trying to think of who was signed around the mid-tier money, but let's say you had Andy Dalton, because he's the popular name because he's the backup in Carolina right now who's playing well through 2 games. Would they would have the same timing issues?
Yeah.
It would just be a Ferrari in the Ferrari in the dilapidated house meme. That's what that effectively would have been. You just can't. I don't think the issue is who's playing backup quarterback. I think the issue is how they're structuring the offense for said backup quarterback.
Yeah, I'm sure you were watching the game too, but listening to Dan Orlovsky and Louis Riddick, they were getting exasperated. They were getting frustrated because every play they're like, Tennessee's giving Miami the middle of the field. They're not, and we're not even taking it. I know Seattle did it too. I'm pretty sure Buffalo did, but I don't remember. As soon as they saw motion, they just sold out and had people attack the perimeter. So the middle of the field was open the whole time, and we were just going sideline to sideline. First, 4th down, we didn't convert. I've seen some breakdowns of it, and people are saying, well, would have worked if Patrick Paul got the block on the second level. And my thought process is that's fine. You can say that. I'm not saying he shouldn't have got it, but a play should not be reliant on a tackle completely letting a defensive end go and then hitting the linebacker.
A rookie tackle, nonetheless, who's making his first career start.
Yes.
I mean, this is not Terron Armstead out there.
Yeah, so it's asking for a lot. It's the same thing where it's like, oh, the second fourth down call, that should have worked if Huntley held the ball. My question becomes again, why are we even giving him the option to give Devin Achane the ball and not just run? Why are we giving it to East-West? And then when you see the all-22 when he gives it, you have one blocker against three defenders. So it's just like it's just what confused me is just making it so complicated. People want to complain like the interior offensive line, although I would say Brewer and Ike have been okay to
fine. They've been fine.
Yeah. Robert Jones, I'd consider benching Robert Jones.
It's time to. I mean, at this point, you can't keep playing him. I know Lester Cotton is not a far better option, but
no.
You can't just keep trying what's not working.
Yeah. The thing with Robert Jones, too, and that would be one of my first solutions is bench. I know Lester Cotton's not good. Even if it's let Andrew Meyer start at center and move Brewer to guard. Not the greatest solution, but I would even do that just because from what I've seen, left guard in our offense is asked to do a lot. And Robert Jones just isn't capable of doing it. He's the one that's constantly messing up a lot of the plays. And when he's messing up the easy stuff, you can't constantly be asking him to pull out to block the best edge rusher outside of Austin Jackson, who's a right tackle. It's just too much for him. So, but on that little diatribe, it just say that to say this. We talk about the interior offensive line. We talk about how we may not trust them. The best way to get to try and build up an offense is just run north-south, and we just don't do it enough.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is, and some of this is personnel, right? As we mentioned, like the weakest part of Miami's offense is the interior offensive line. And that's not anything you can fix. I don't think it's as bad as fans want to say it is. People are calling it the worst in the league. I don't think it's the worst in the league.
No.
But inherently, when you don't have that offensive line inside you, when you don't have those dudes inside, you can't really run north and south all the time. But the other problem for me is that, and this is where I guess the other solution comes in for me, you can't keep playing these same tight ends, guys.
Yeah.
You can't keep playing Durham Smythe. You can't keep playing Julian Hill. I don't care. Like, I don't care if you think that they're going to turn it around. Julian Hill's been called for multiple penalties. He's been called for legal shift penalties. He's missed blocks at the point of attack. And Julian Hill's job is to block. That's what he is paid to do. And right now, he is not doing his job. Durham Smythe has been better, but he's not been much better.
Alec Ingold's been bad.
Yeah, Alec Ingold's been bad. Jonnu Smith has not been very good. It's time to go look elsewhere. Whether it's the UDFA Hayden Rucci, if it's him, if it's a free agent, I don't know what the solution is. I think that, but the solution is not playing these guys, right? And like, you're going to hear a common trend from me in this episode. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting the same results.
Yeah.
At some point, like, you're 1-3, you are statistically the worst offense in football right now. You can't keep playing the same guys, hoping that one of them just suddenly turns it around.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see it at any team that runs this scheme. You rely on the tight end to block. And then with us, you rely on the fullback to be a lead blocker, and we pull the left guard all the time. The worst players on offense are the tight end, the fullback, and the left guard. We can add Braxton Berrios in there too, and we're asking him to do a lot more blocking than we should, and he's 5'8". So
I mean, that's the problem with the entire wide receiver room is
true.
They don't have a guy who is 6'1" and can block. Tyreek Hill is a very willing blocker. He is not a very good blocker, and that's largely due to just his overall size.
Yeah. And something I've seen is people are saying we're going out wide all the time because you can't trust the interior offensive line. My response to that is, okay, so you can't trust the guys to block, so your answer is to have a Smurf wide receiver crew be your main blockers. And you're just asking too much. And again, this is there's the Midwest fan of me, the Big Ten fan of me. It's like, look, just get in an I formation. If a team stops you because they stack the box and they beat you, so be it. If you can't get 1 yard up the middle, you're not a good team.
The
I hate to say
problem was they couldn't do it because we all watched the Seattle game where they tried the fullback dive multiple times, and
the other
it
thing
didn't work multiple times.
Yes, the other thing I would say with that though is one of those dives we actually had a good look and we did a motion and it brought the linebacker into the play. So there's also that's where your point of getting rid of the motion comes into play. Now, on the positive, getting Odell Beckham Jr. back and Malik Washington back, and hopefully River Craycraft soon, should help some of the offensive issues. But
yeah, because I think that, and I don't want this to be
didn't mention
it. I don't want this to be a slight on Braxton Berrios because I think that he still has a role, right? And people want to say, well, he should just be cut, blah, blah, blah. Like, I get it, guys. He's not been very good. He's probably your best punt returner. He's not muffed a punt in 2 years, it feels like. I don't care if he doesn't return all of them. The first thing is you got to catch the ball on those. But I think Malik Washington adds a little bit more dynamicism to the offense. He's a guy who's another playmaker, a guy you can get the ball into in space. And, it's at least forcing teams to not just double Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and hoping that Alec Ingold, Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane at wide receiver stops them, right? And like that's important. I think OBJ seems like he will probably play this week or the week after, or I guess the week after the bye week. But like those guys back should add more talent to that room, and that will at the very least, help ease some of the concerns for a quarterback and the processing that has to happen. Now, is it going to be the magical savior of everything? No. Just like we can be clear about this, you're not saving the offense by OBJ coming out there, but it will help the offense, and it should help the offense move the ball a little bit more.
Yeah. The other thing I would say needs to change, whether it's Mostert coming back or making Jalen Wright or Jeff Wilson more carries. After a good start to the season, Devin Achane's been bad the last 2 weeks. He is missing the hole. I think advanced stats show him he is one of, if not the worst in terms of yards per expected rush based off of blocking. And again, some of that's play calling. We run outside all the time with him, but there's been so many plays I've seen on Ryder's breakdowns, on Eric's breakdowns that they do during the week, Tyler DeSena's breakdowns. They all do them. The middle is blocked really well, and Achane just doesn't see the hole, or he sees it too late, and it's a loss, or it's 0 yards. So I think you do have to kind of reel him back in a little bit, use him as the change of pace back.
Well, yeah, like if you ever watched Devon Achane at Texas A&M, the thing that he had was his speed, his electrifying playmaking ability. He was constantly a home run threat. The problem was he never really got the easy yards. And part of that size, right? He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. He has to play football a different way than everyone else. And I think that's why they went out and they drafted Jalen Wright, who's a little bit more of an in-between the tackles back. And Raheem Mostert was re-signed or at least remained on the roster. Jeff Wilson was brought back, right? Like they knew that Devon Achane could not be an every down back. Yeah. Just naturally, right? And like he's a very talented player. I don't want anyone to think that this is hating on Devon Achane because he's incredibly talented, and I will advocate for getting him the ball more. The problem is that when you have a backup quarterback, you can't be going 2nd and 13 every drive. That is the recipe for disaster with the backup quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa can bail you out of a 2nd and 13 because he's got the chemistry, he's got that talent, he knows where his wide receivers are going to be. Tyler Huntley's been here for 2 weeks, guys. You can't just keep going 2nd and 14, 2nd and 13. And so I do agree that like the biggest solution for me, and this is something that Eric and I had discussed and I had mentioned to a few people on Twitter, right? Like you need to get a guy who, even if it's just going to be a 1 or 2 yard gain or even a no gain, right? You need a guy who's going to just take what's there. Yep. And uh, Raheem Mostert does that really well. And Jeff Wilson is a power back who's just built to do that. And Jalen Wright, I think he's
He
got
seems
some of
more
this.
decisive.
He's got some of the same problems that Achane's got. I think that's just because he's played 2 career games.
Yeah.
And so like he's still learning a little bit. And so I know everyone wanted to say, and I know this has been a big discussion on Twitter, like, well, why didn't they go out and sign Derrick Henry? What, guys, really? We talked about how talented this running back room was all offseason.
Yeah.
And now suddenly, because they're 1-3, because they've had unfortunate injuries to that position. And guys, you can't script that Jeff Wilson hurts his hamstring in the pregame warmups.
Yeah.
Like, that's just unfortunate.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, we're not saying Achane isn't talented, but he, at this point in his career, is the change of pace back. He doesn't have the best vision for this offense. When you get him in space, he's great, but we're seeing the holes are there. He's just he naturally just wants to go outside, and it's hurting. Now, some of it is play calling too. Like, teams are selling out for the outside zone, for screens, and we're not taking advantage of it. But like I saw, Jalen Wright got a couple carries, and he cut up field a lot quicker, and it made a difference. I'd also probably say Wright's a little better as in a pass pro than Achane is right now too.
So the stats, next gen stats, if you have NFL Pro, they have rushing yards after contact, and the league average after contact is 3.1 for running backs. Jeff Wilson, very limited sample size. I'm not going to sit here and act like 8 carries is a very good sample size for this. He's at 4.2 yards after contact. Jalen Wright, double the carries as Jeff Wilson, is at 3.5 yards. So he's about league average, a little bit over league average. Raheem Mostert is at 2.6. Again, he's only played 1 game, and that was like 6 carries. The year before, Raheem Mostert was 3.2, so he was about average. All that to say, Devon Achane, as talented as he is, this year, 2.6 yards after contact. And in 2023, it was 4.4. So is he talented after contact? Yes. But his after contact is making guys miss an open space. His after contact is not running between the guard and the tackle and asking him to get 4 yards. And this is like, if you're looking for the easiest solution to fix this, it's to play Jeff Wilson more. It's to play Jalen Wright more. Raheem Mostert, I don't know what his practice status was this week. I just haven't looked at it yet. But if he's healthy, right, like those are the guys that need to be in that role more often on first down, just so you don't get behind the sticks as often.
Yeah. Hold on one second here. But so yeah, I definitely think that's the other big one. Just go north-south. We were talking about benching Robert Jones earlier. What would be your solution to that? Would you go with Lester Cotton knowing he ain't a great option? Would you try the undrafted free agent Meyer? Would you move Brewer there? Would you just promote someone from the practice squad?
I know they have Jackson Carman on the practice squad. I think he's done guard a little bit, right? I don't think he's very good, if we're being brutally honest. Andrew Myers never played guard. I don't know if the solution with where you're at right now is to also swap the center, because I feel like the worst idea from a very just simple standpoint is suddenly going from just a backup quarterback to backup quarterback and a rookie undrafted free agent backup center. There needs to be some continuity there. So I would say right now the easiest solution is just Lester Cotton and hope that he is better than Robert Jones, because that's essentially all you're looking for right now is better than Robert Jones. If you are looking for anything more than that, you are just going to be disappointed, I think.
Yeah. And like I said, it's just, we asked the left guard to do so much, and he's just, there was one of the sacks we gave up. I don't know if you saw this play, but it kind of went, I know Eric and Ryder both reviewed it. There was open space. He was a full sprint going one, like towards the center. He saw his guy coming. He stopped. It was almost like watching a linebacker change position with how he had to do.
It was,
so it's just his head spinning. Yeah, Lester Cotton, I don't know what's do much better. It's just funny because everybody was worried about Ike. I know Ike kind of went viral because he was on the ground on one play. I'm not too worried about that because it was down a field and he got
I know
knocked
I
out,
know Austin Jackson's going viral for that sack allowed. Uh,
which was on
that's
Jalen.
not on him. Like anyone who still thinks that sack was an Austin Jackson, the protection rules normally tell you to take most dangerous man. And teams will vary that, but normally it is the closest guy to you because the easiest way to the quarterback is straight. The
Yep.
easiest way to get to a quarterback is straight. And so an edge, a wider edge, has to normally turn around and do it. On that topic, Driscoll, I think, is on the Eagles practice squad. If you
Yeah,
are
we could
really
bring it back.
desperate to go bring him back, you could just do it, right? And like, I don't
Yeah.
think Jack Driscoll is going to say no to an NFL offer. But I do agree that, like, I don't think Robert Jones isn't talented. But the biggest issue is when you have a guy whose confidence, like, he just doesn't look confident out there. It looks like he's second guessing himself. He doesn't look like he knows what he's being asked to do, which is uncharacteristic for him because I thought he was good to end last year. But I do agree that, like, you just need to fix it. You just need to change it. And
Mhm.
whether it's Lester Cotton or Jackson Carman or go re-sign Jack Driscoll, I guess, right? Like, whatever it is, you can't keep expecting him to just turn it around, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. On the plus, I thought Patrick Paul looked solid for his first start. I know PFF didn't grade him high. It was like 50, 55, but I was like,
He was fine.
they left him
He
on
was
an island most of the game, and he wasn't really getting beat too much. You can see that he's raw, but I didn't come out of this game thinking that he was in over his head.
He had a tough matchup against
Landry, right?
Harold
Or
Landry,
Arden
I think,
Key.
was Arden Key. Like, those are tougher matchups because of the way that they play.
He is not hurt. We just started Paul.
And so I think that, like, I was encouraged by that. And I know that I think the discussion for a lot of people are going to be, well, what's the draft pick now? Because I think the Dolphins are second overall pick. And, like, I'll be honest, I don't care in October. I don't care where you are in October. So, like, don't ask me who they should pick in the top 10 because I don't know if they'll be in the top 10. But
I don't think we will.
I don't either.
If we were, my Mason Graham propaganda is going to start real quick.
Oh my God. I would love it.
He is a stud, and he would fit a need because we still do need some youth and talent in the trenches. Still not saying it, buddy.
But like, just on the topic, right? Like, I think Patrick Paul looked fine. And
yeah, he looked
I
fine.
don't think he should be the starter again, right? Like, once Armstead comes back, and it feels like this is going to be the week, given McDaniel's comments.
He was a full participant.
It would be better for Paul to just develop, right? And just get time to develop and figure some stuff out. But long term, which is what you're basically projecting for Patrick Paul, I'm encouraged. And I do just want to say this before we move on. Everyone is talking about, why did they draft Patrick Paul? Why did they draft Patrick Paul? Why did they draft player X who's more NFL ready or whatever? You don't draft for year one. You don't. You draft for year 5, year 6. You draft because the way to win football games long term is to draft well and develop well.
Yeah.
Like, first year for most rookies is how much can you contribute, and from there, what can we improve on? So, like, I know that everyone's pointing towards names that would have helped them now. I know centers are big ones, whatever, right? Like, you don't draft for that. I think the ball pick is going to end up working out well, and I'm sure we'll get to him later. Chop Robinson, I think, depending. I think he just needs more time to develop. But I was encouraged by Patrick Paul's play. I thought Malik Washington looked good in the minimal snaps he got, and I thought Tyler Huntley settled down into the game well. He's still missing throws, and you're just going to get, I think, some missed throws with him. But he looked a little bit more comfortable when you got him moving, and which makes sense when you look at what he did a lot in Baltimore. When you got him moving, he just looked a little bit more comfortable inside the offense.
Yeah. So the thing I'll say for solutions too, and we can kind of wrap a bow on the offense because I think everybody's gotten their frustration. I don't think, aside from getting people healthy, I don't think there's any issue that isn't fixable just by simplifying the playbook. more mid-range games, more mid-range passes, more going in the middle, just more north-south playing. I think the offense is fixable. I think it's just I know a lot of people want Mike McDaniel out now. I am not going to say McDaniel out right now. I am going to say he's got to win me back a bit because I am just so flabbergasted with how bad the play calling's been the last 2 weeks. But he's got to swallow his pride, and admittedly he has not been able to do that when things go south.
Yeah, I am not to the point of where he's gone, and I know I've probably tweeted it, and people will inevitably bring up the tweets. My rule of thumb is during the game and 2 hours after the game, do not take my things as anything more than me just being pissed off. I think the biggest thing, right, and this is something that Kyle Krabs on Locked On Dolphins mentioned, but I think that the biggest thing, the beefy burrito, I don't even know the entire story of that. I just got distracted by the comment. I don't know the entire story about that. I'll be honest. But I just like for Mike McDaniel and Kyle Krabs and Locked On Dolphins, who, if you don't listen, like I'm sure you listen to it. He had mentioned something during his post-game show. He had basically mentioned that these next few weeks are basically an evaluation period for a lot of people. I think it's an evaluation for Chris Grier. It's an evaluation for Mike McDaniel. It's an evaluation for players. For me, at least, wins and losses still matter to me. And people are effectively playing to prove that they should be here next year. Mike McDaniel is coaching to prove that he should be the man to lead this team into the next step, right? And Chris Grier is being judged based off how they look over these next few weeks. And Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, like all these guys, right? Like for me, you are effectively playing to prove to me that you should be here long term. Mike McDaniel, I'm not going to fire him yet, but you have to fix something.
Yeah.
And if you can't fix something, then we'll have issues when we get to week 17 of the season.
Yeah. And lastly, I think it's now time, whether it's Bevel or it's Frank Smith, you've got to consider, at least until Tua's back, giving up play calling.
I get it. I think that is important. I don't care who is calling plays on Sundays. All I want to see is the offense to look simplified. If you go out there and that first drive is 3 motions, I'll be pissed because we all saw what happens in the Seattle game and in the Tennessee game when you run the motion. That no one's on the same page right now. And so, like, if that's the case, then I'll just be frustrated with the entire offensive coaching staff, Mike McDaniel included. So, like, for me, I don't know if it's the solution is to change who's calling the plays. I'll say that if we were changing who's calling the plays, it should be Frank Smith and not Darren Bevel, just because he's the OC. He's likely had a little bit more of a say in this offense. And with the backup quarterback, I don't want the quarterback coach to also have to be tasked with calling plays. But I do agree that, like, whether it's Mike McDaniel calling plays or Frank Smith or Bevel or freaking Wes Welker, for all I care, right? Like, whoever is calling plays, the offense needs to be simplified. And that's, like, my biggest solution is, like, you got to put the training wheels back on. This is like a little kid learning to ride the bike. The training wheels got to go back on. I know it's a step backwards for you guys, but training wheels got to go back on at some point.
Yeah. I will also say this, again, because we talked about tight ends earlier. I think not getting and Jonnu Smith's been bad, and yes, I know we got him, but we got to draft a tight end at some point that's an actual receiving threat. And
this is the draft to do it. I know we don't want to talk about the draft. This is the draft to get a tight end.
This is definitely the draft to do it. I've thought the last 2 drafts had some good options too, but this offense is still missing someone who can just sit in the middle of the field and just take up space and post up. Yeah. Our producer loves Lackey from Iowa.
Lackey's
you have Ty
good.
Warren, Penn State. You have Loveland from Michigan.
Gunnar Helm from Texas is my favorite tight end in this class.
Gunnar Helm. So there is a lot of good tight ends.
And I just want to mention one more. Harold Fannin from Bowling Green. That tape's awesome. He kicks ass.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we go this year without another tight end, I might drive down to South Florida and ask what the hell's going on. I might actually talk to John Embry and say, if you're that confident in your coaching, you need to be gone, because we're getting shit in the tight. People just keep talking about the interior offensive line, and I'm out here complaining about the tight ends for years on end. So here's the story about the burrito, apparently a Wildcat fan said he would shove a beefy burrito up his ass if they lost to BYU. Unlike the FSU poop guy, he actually followed through and then K-State won. He was asking if I should take one for the team. No, I am not shoving a beefy burrito up my ass.
I feel like you can't repeat what someone else has done. That's
No.
not helping the team out, guys. You got to be creative at least.
Yes, and no, nothing involving sticking stuff up my ass is gonna happen. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Silver, but it's not happening. Move on to defense. We just have to stop giving up. We give up one big play a game. We just got to stop. That's the simplest.
I've got no qualms with the defense right now.
The only thing I can say is the safety play's been bad.
Safety play's been bad. I just want to say this about the Jordan Poyer, Jalen Phillips injury, and we'll talk about Jalen Phillips later. Don't go around blaming Jordan Poyer for trying to make a freaking play. This is football, guys. What is he supposed to do? Just let him run? Because if you let him run, then everyone on Twitter afterwards is going to be going, well, why did Jordan Poyer let him run past him? And I saw some people say, well, he was in the wrong gap. I don't know all the rules. I don't think he was in the wrong gap, and I think he actually played that play pretty well. But no, I think like just overall, my biggest qualm with this defense, and it arguably might be my only qualm, is like the chunk plays have to stop.
Yeah.
Because it is incredibly, and some of that is just because they're on the field so much right now.
Yes.
Miami's not winning time possession battle. They're not getting first downs. And so the defense is on the field a lot. But the biggest issue right now for me is that you have to figure that out. And I don't know what it is, but something's got to change there. I think the run defense is getting better. Tony Pollard's runs were very much propped up by a few chunk plays. Outside of that, I thought they did well to stop him.
Yeah, run play is the only. It's funny because people talk about Jordan Brooks. I had a show with before Seattle with Rob Staten, who covers Seattle. He's from Sheffield, and he's not a Jordan Brooks fan. Jordan Brooks has been good. It's been David Long when he's healthy and Anthony Walker. They're just wrong gaps. And
yeah, I mean, but it's like it's also that the interior defensive line's not holding up a point of attack sometimes, and
Benito Jones has been a bad nose.
I know. Everyone wants to go, well, why didn't they go bring back Raekwon Davis? I don't know if you've been watching. Raekwon Davis hasn't exactly been very good himself.
I don't think
he also wasn't very good in Barry Jackson, God bless him, has gone on a 2-week tirade about Raekwon Davis, trying to clamor that that's the reason why their run defense is bad. I think it's just a general problem right now. The numbers support that this gets better. And if you believe that statistics, indicative statistics of projection, normally return back to average, right? Or like you progress or regress to the mean. The numbers say Miami's run defense should be fine in due time. The issue now, though, is that you don't have due time. You're 1-3. Those numbers have to really get better this week.
Yeah. Only other complaint I'd have is again the player who's consistently been the worst on the team has been Kader Kohu. So maybe whether it's I don't know if you can put Bonner or Storm Duck in the slot when Kendall Fuller's back. Maybe you have to go to the big slot and put Holland in, where I think Holland's actually graded out fairly well in the slot. But
my only issue with that would be we've talked about how bad the safeties are. That's now putting 2 new safeties on the field because it doesn't look like Jordan Poyer is going to play this week.
And Patrick McMorris isn't ready to come back yet. It doesn't look like. But it's just, you just got to give up the play. I think some of it, like I said, is just one person. Unfortunately, in defense, if one person's in the wrong position with how this defense is set up, it's gonna do it. It's like, but just guys, defense has been put in a lot of shitty positions during this losing streak because we're going for it on fourth downs and not converting. So got into an argument with someone in Discord the other day. It's like, sorry, you can say the defense has to get more stops, but when their offense is constantly getting 3 and outs in short fields, I don't know what more you want from the defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like right now, uh, my biggest issue is just the fact that the offense isn't playing well because I think that the defense has looked good for the most part. And I know the Buffalo game was not great. They really settled down the second half, and Josh Allen couldn't really do much. And they looked good
Yeah.
against Seattle, and I thought they looked really good against Tennessee for the most part. And I think it would have been it's a little unfortunate that Will Levis got hurt because if Will Levis got hurt, maybe we get a couple shorter fields to try and figure some stuff out. But
Yeah. Or he gives a touchdown like he's gotten every week.
yeah, or he just hands the ball off to you and lets you run the other way. But like regardless, I'm not too concerned about the defense.
No.
There might be some personnel changes that you can do, whether it's Kate or Kohu, who I still believe in. I know like I may be the only one in Dolphins land who like still believes in Kate or Kohu. And I'll die on this hill that I think he's still a good slot
Yeah.
corner. I think he's just probably been challenged a bit and hasn't really responded. I thought he looked good against Seattle. Didn't really look good on Sunday against Tennessee or Monday against Tennessee. But
I'll say against Seattle, he had a rough matchup because he had to go up against Jackson Jigba, who might be the best slot in the.
I also just like probably has not had the best matchups if we're being honest, because I know that Jacksonville's got some decent slot receivers and their team sucks, but they've got good slot receivers. Buffalo has Cyborg at quarterback, and so every matchup is bad when you're playing a Cyborg at quarterback. Seattle, Jackson Smith and Jigba, probably no excuse for Tennessee. Probably no excuse for Tennessee. Probably should have played better, but if you want to get him out of there and try and fix it, I'd say probably Nick Needham's your best bet, just because he's got experience in the slot, and if he's healthy, that probably is just the easiest solution to this.
Yeah. The other thing I have to say, like, aside from the stupid penalties a week ago, I think the special teams has been better this year. I think a lot of the penalties are still just trying to figure out the new rules. I still have no idea what Duke Riley was thinking when the refs bailed him out.
Lost his head. And my only argument to this would be Duke Riley's on the roster to be a special teams guy. If he's fucking up on special teams,
it's time to.
We may have an issue there. But I mean, I think my biggest issue on the special teams side as a special teams guy is the punt gunners are kind of getting their butt kicked right now. And a lot of this is like, you wonder why some of these returns are a lot longer than they should be. It's because the punt returner is halfway out of bounds. And it's like the punt returner is the most important punt position because he's got to hold contain. And if you're getting beat like that, might be time to put some new guys over there. And I don't know if Elijah Campbell is. I think Elijah Campbell's still one of the punt gunners. He's been fine. It's whoever is next to him. And I wish I knew who it was right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I've also been working on a theory. I think I told you this before, Kev. I think the team almost overcompensated for all the injuries last year and went lighter in practice. And they came into the season unprepared, and now they're getting injuries even then. But it just feels like something's just been off because people look – if we were just getting beat, like I've said this before, if it was just our offensive line getting destroyed or the defensive line getting destroyed or special teams is bad, I'd be like, all right, that sucks. We saw it happening. But something just seems off with everything, and people just don't look focused. So something's just –
I don't know if it's practice habits. I don't know what it is, right? And this is one of the few times where I don't have a solution. And I came in this episode with a whole bunch of solutions in mind. I don't have a solution as to why the team looks out of place because I don't know if it's practice. I don't know if it's I don't think it's leadership. I don't think it's practice, but something is up, and I don't know what it is exactly. That's up to Mike McDaniel because he's around the team every day to figure out.
Good news is, even though we lost Jalen Phillips for the year, we do have a lot of guys getting ready to come back, so that should help.
Chop Robinson, it's time to grow up, buddy. I know you were hoping to get a development year. You no longer have that development year. It's time to go play.
He's got to play. They got to trust him. He's going to make mistakes. I do think he's had a couple plays where you can see the talent. Tennessee was not a good game for Chop. I will admittedly say that.
He was fine though. He was
fine. He didn't get a lot of plays, but he would I think the other games he's had at least one play each or 1 or 2 snaps each game, besides Tennessee, where you could see the talent. But yeah, we're going to have to realize he's going to get beat up in the run game a bit, but you just have to deal with that because he also becomes explosive, and you want to see Muhammad Kamara too. So
Yeah, I mean, the solutions are either you just deal with Chop Robinson's mistakes, and they've used him a lot on rundowns early on. And I don't know if I think it was CK who tweeted this out. They've used him a lot on rundowns. Something I noticed as well, like first and second down, he's allowed more on more than third down. I wonder if part of that is trying to see him develop that run defense a little bit more and get game experience, or if that's I know some coaches want to say you have to earn your third down reps, whatever. I think that's stupid. But
yeah.
um, I mean, he's got to play. He's got to play 3 downs now, or
Mhm.
Tyus Bowser's got to play 3 downs. The good thing about Tyus Bowser is he doesn't need to learn the system. He's played in the system.
Yeah.
Quentin Bell, I think, is still on the roster. Couldn't tell you. Haven't heard his name.
He was our second highest rated D end or defensive player according to PFF.
Sure.
Yeah, I was all right.
Sure. I believe you.
Yeah.
It hasn't stood out in either way, good or bad. So, Mo Kamara is probably going to be active now. And I thought he looked good in the preseason. I get why he's probably not playing in the regular season, but he may have to get reps, and then it's just dependent on what the status is of Bradley Chubb when he comes back. I know he's not practicing this week. They didn't open the window, which is a little bit surprising to me, but it doesn't seem like he suffered a setback. So it could just be trying to slow play it a little bit because, again, like, yeah, you want him on the field. You also don't want him on the field too early because if he's not healthy, that's doing you no favors as a team. It's doing him no favors as a player. He's still an important piece to this team long term. You signed him to a big contract. He has to be important to you. But whenever he comes back, I'd feel just confident about the edge room in general because I think Ogba's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bradley Chubb is a good edge rusher. And like, it sucks to lose Jalen Phillips. It sucks for him because of what he went through last year, what he went through in college with the injuries. And one more time, just for anyone wondering, this is not a fault on Chris Greer. He did not draft a guy who had knee injuries in college.
No.
We need to stop with this. Every guy who they draft is injury prone, and he got another injury. That just means they're bad. They draft a guy with concussion problems. Jalen Phillips hasn't had a concussion in the NFL. It's unfortunate that you have a contact ACL injury and you tear your Achilles in the MetLife shitty turf, right? Like that's just unfortunate.
Been like 20 ACL or Achilles injuries.
That's just unfortunate. Like that's just like, honestly, I just feel bad for him. Like the Dolphins, they're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to find ways to adjust. I'm confident still in this defense. I think this defense is good enough that they can win you games on their own for a little bit, but the offense still has to return the favor to some degree. I mean, you can't be going around scoring 3 points expecting the defense to score 10 for you. I mean, Chop Robinson, it's time to grow up. Mo Kamara, it's time to step up and play football. And Tyus Bowser, you better hope you remember that defense because you're going to have to be playing a lot in it.
Yeah. And real quick, going to talk about the game this weekend, the movable force versus the stoppable object. That is the 31st and 32nd ranked offenses in the league playing against each other, us and the Patriots.
Stoppable object against a stoppable object.
It's the movable force versus the stoppable object. So I'll be honest, I haven't really paid attention to the Patriots much. I know Christian Gonzalez is having a really good year at corner.
Gonzalez looks good. That's about all I've got about them because that team is – you think the Dolphins are bad? That team looked really competitive in the first 2 games of the year when they played
Seattle and
who they played Cincinnati, right? They beat Cincinnati. They played close against Seattle. This has not been the same team over the last 2 weeks. And I had their game against the 49ers on in the background on this TV back here while I was doing work over here. And I felt like every time I flipped it back, it was like, and Jacoby Brissett has no clue what he's doing. And it's like, oh, okay, cool.
We might see Drake May at some point this weekend.
I'm not sure you'll see Drake May this weekend because the other problem with that team is you thought the Dolphins' offensive line was bad. The Patriots just lost David Andrews for the year. Their offensive line, according to PFF, is Vidarian Lowe, City Sow. Be honest, I don't even know who this guy is. Nick Leverett, uh, Layden Robinson, and Michael Onyenwu. So you have like one good player in that room.
Yeah, I was going to say I only know Onwenu. Every other name I'm convinced you just use AI to come up with.
I had to so the PFF depth chart only lists their last names. I know Vidarian Lowe's last name because he was on the Vikings. I know City Sal's last name because he was a guy that I kind of liked in the draft. Nick Leverett, I have never heard that name before in my life.
No.
Jaden Robinson or Layden Robinson is an AI generated name.
Yeah.
You made that name up. And then Michael Onyenwu is a good football player.
Yeah. Yep. He's good. Actually, what we just said about the offense, just get ready to play some smash mouth football or the best you can. Make it simple. If we lose this game, this would be worse than the Titans loss, which was a bad loss. Jalen Polk, I think, is out this week again, or it might be questionable.
I think Kyle Duggar seemingly is not practicing.
Yeah.
That's great news for Miami if Kyle Duggar doesn't play. That guy's really good.
He's Duggar. I believe he had a pick 6 against Tua last year or against Tua? He had a pick. He had a pick
6 against someone. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was, but yeah, their defense is still competitive. Christian Barrymore going up against our offensive line will be a test. If we keep it simple, both in blocking scheme and passing, there is no reason why we shouldn't win this game. The question again becomes, will we do it?
Yeah. I don't blame anyone for not being too positive about this game because of what we've seen from the Dolphins recently. I think if you ask me again tomorrow, I'll be the most positive Dolphins fan of all time, and I'll be talking about how they're going to be 3-3 after the next 3 weeks. But this feels like an important game, man. Like whether it's to save your season, whether it's to save jobs, whether it's to keep the season as a hopeful entity, it's just like a must-win game. And
it is.
It's a game you should win. It's a game you need to look a lot better in because you're lucky this game's being played in New England because I think that the fans would be booing the living hell out of you if this game was in Miami and you started playing the same way you did last game. So this is an important game. I mean, just for the offense in particular, right? Like you got to prove that. I don't think you have to look 100% perfect.
No.
You got to win this game still. You got to look competent. And you got to at least show improvement because that's like the thing that they just haven't shown yet.
I think you got to show ambition too offensively because again, if we're trying stuff and we're just losing because we're not good, that's one thing, but we're not. It just feels like we're not even trying.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of this is, and I don't like to call out NFL players' efforts, and I try not to do that. Some of this does feel effort-based to some degree, or at the very least, like just not executing at the highest level, which is always a concern because this is still a team that like you built to be able to execute at a high level. So it kind of needs to happen now.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish we had more to say about the Patriots game, but I think we're all just kind of like, well, let's see what happens.
This is, again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, this is you got to figure it out game. This is guys playing for their chances to be here next year. Now, I'm not going to say that like Mike McDaniel gets fired if they lose this game or Chris Greer gets fired if they, well, whatever, right? Like whoever the coach X or player X is, right? But these next few weeks, I think the weeks while Tua is out and then the few weeks after Tua returns are going to be what decides people's futures. And look, man, your back's against the wall. You've been beaten up. It's time like to get the coach speak in here. It's time to get your ass up and play.
Yep. Find a way to get to 3-3 by the Arizona game when Tua's hopefully back.
Or 2-4. Even 2-4 is like fine. You get Tua back. Team should be healthier by that point because it doesn't seem like they've avoided for the most part really serious injuries. Now it doesn't help when you still lose guys every week, But like,
yeah, we're at the point where I'm like, okay, the training staff and strength and conditioning staff need to be
shot into the
evaluated.
sun. Like,
Yeah,
just at this point, this is not working. Whatever you're doing
yeah.
has to change. But no, I
I
mean,
get
like,
it. I get it's the NFL and injuries happen, but you can't be losing guys like that every week, every year.
yeah. But if you're, I mean, even if you're 2-4 heading into that the Arizona game, because I think that's when Tua is probably going to come back. If you're 2-4 heading into that game, I at the very least feel encouraged, right? Like, it's not awful to be 2-4, and teams have come back from 2-4. Teams do not come back from 1-5. That's a death wish in the NFL. You can't be 1-5 heading into that Arizona game.
If we're 1-5, unfortunately, it's like even if Tua comes back, I'm like, look, I'm looking for who the assets to get rid of to get more draft picks. I don't like saying that. I'm not giving up on the season yet, but if we're at 1-5, 1-6, because you go into Arizona game 1-5, I think we have Buffalo the next week. So
yeah.
So then it just becomes a race against everything. But you got to start looking at options at that point. But just get a win this week, kind of recuperate in the bye week, and we'll talk about the Colts when we get closer. But there's no reason we shouldn't have an expectation to beat the Colts, especially if Anthony Richardson's healthy.
Yeah, you should at least compete against the Colts. I think the Colts are still a really good football team, but their defense is really bad. Yes. Their defense has been beaten by everyone, including Justin Fields and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I don't know if you've looked at that offense recently. There ain't exactly much talent on that offense, and they're winning games because
I see that offense every week.
they're winning games because their defense is really damn good. Yes. And their offense is just good enough, which, like, I think to some degree the Dolphins probably just have to be that for a few weeks.
Yeah. I just want to see a bad offense, not
I would take the 23rd offense in football right now. Yes. If you told me that for the next 2 weeks the Dolphins were the 23rd best offense, I would go, okay, so they win a game? Awesome.
Yeah. No, that's how I'm at. I do think we win this weekend, and then just get in the bye week and try and regroup at that point. Recalibrate everything once we get there.
Yeah, I think they win this week. I feel pretty confident in saying they win this week. And actually, no, I don't feel confident at all in saying they win this week. But I think they win this week. Whether it's because guys step up, whether it's because the leaders in that room says we can't let this keep happening, guys. Like, you got to figure it out. But like, really, it is FIFO. Figure it the fuck out, guys.
Yep.
Like, that's it. Just figure it out.
Yeah. No. And Kev, thank you. I think we're gonna end it right there. I think we got all the extra venomous feelings we had, toxic feelings.
I feel a lot better after this. I feel a lot better after this.
We basically laid out what we got to do. Just got to go back to KISS, keep it simple, stupid, and hopefully do that, get healthy, and gonna positive vibe it into existence, make a playoff run once Tua is back. So
that's all you need, baby.
Yep. So thank you everybody for joining us. We will see you next time.